Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with founder of Flowers Capital, Eric Burns. From his base in Cincinnati, Ohio, he gets into all things Flowers Capital. It is aptly named after his grandfather, Sheldon Flowers, who encouraged a family of entrepreneurs to live life bullish. His company places private equity with select commercial real estate operators to achieve passive returns and financial freedom for its investors. He understands the difficulties of entrepreneurship and believes in financial freedom. The course he has taken through his life by doing the next right thing and failing forward has led him to his current product, financial freedom for fellow entrepreneurs. It's a great story. Enjoy. Eric, great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into your life as the founder of Flowers Capital, I want to know, I know we're all getting tired of COVID and talking about it, but it was such a big event for everybody. How did you survive that time period, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
As far as Flowers Capital is concerned, it was interesting. And actually, at the height of the market, I had a 40 unit under contract that fell apart in due diligence due to some. We got numbers back and they didn't work anymore, and we walked away. So deals were really on fire coming out of COVID, and the market, a couple of years ago was really hot, and it was hard because you really had to pay attention to what the details of the underwriting were, to make sure that everyone's projections were conservative. And it was tough for a lot of people, because of how they were having to go get deals. They were having to be really aggressive. So as a capital raiser, to place money in a deal that you're not certain is conservative, and when I'm underwriting them myself, I'm more comfortable. So when I'm out looking at deals, there was a lot of them coming through that I thought were a little ambitious. And then coming out of that season, interest rate hikes and things like that, the same people that were struggling in COVID are now going to be looking to maybe exit their properties a little earlier. And that benefits Flowers Capital. There's a lot of great operators out there buying below market value, and they're getting a little bit better with commercial. The debt terms affect it quite a bit, and they're getting better looks at deals because of the relationships they have. So COVID started somewhat of a roller coaster, perpetuated by the Fed, I guess, is kind of the best way I would explain it.
So let's get to the heart and soul, Eric, of what you do on a daily basis here in 2024. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at Career Day, and one of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
Hey, kids. Yeah, so what I do for a living is, if all you guys in this room wanted to buy a big apartment, could any of you afford it? And they'd all say, "I don't think so." Maybe one or two would say yes. And then I'd say, "Okay, well, I'm going to pool all your money together, and then we'll have enough to buy one. And I'll run it, and you get all the money." I guess is kind of how I would explain it. But yeah, I take private investor capital, place it in commercial deals, and I use really great operators and great markets. And an example would be Dallas, Phoenix, and these are hard markets to get into. So having an established company really helps. But yeah, I pool investor money in smaller chunks, and then we'll place it as a group as maybe a million, maybe even, it depends on how much the operators need. So, for example, we might take 20 people, invest $1 million in a deal that we think is really great. Those investors join the limited partnership, receive distributions, and they're split at exit passively. So the operator will run the deal, and the limited partnership will invest passively for a better split usually.
So when you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I guess a fireman, and I ended up doing that. Well, let's be honest, Joe, we all want to be rock stars, right?
Yeah, of course.
So aside from that, fireman was high up there, and I actually did spend 17 years at Cincinnati Fire Department and retired as a lieutenant. And Man, what a great experience. And as much as I love the fire department, I love entrepreneurship. And it's interesting how life plays out sometimes where I just feel like I've done kind of the next best thing that made sense for me. And things come full circle more than you think, more than people think, I guess.
For sure. So take me back to where you were born and raised. How did these seeds of being, a motivated businessman helping people out, and all of these attributes that have contributed to your success? What were the early seeds that were planted that were harvested?
Okay, so I think I'd like to answer this question in two parts, actually. So the first part is how did the seed get planted, and then I'll kind of go into when my goal setting really changed my trajectory. So as a kid, looking back, my father was the absolute, probably perfect example for a value add, bring value to the customer type salesman. He would go in and inventory labels for his customer. He sold printing labels to big, um, some of them were like meatpacking plants and larger commercial accounts, but he would go in and inventory the warehouses with his customers. And I actually came from a family of entrepreneurs. So my grandfather was more of a traditional businessman, but he was actually from the World War II generation. And they are very bold, I believe. Just their body of work as a generation is pretty impressive what they built as a group of Americans. But so he was always encouraging us. And so my aunt and uncle had a small business. My brother has a another small business. So I was growing up, I grew up around a lot of small business entrepreneurs on that scale. Um, my cousin Matt is always kind of one of those guys pushing, and compared to my cousin's big ideas, mine are pretty small. So but yeah, my grandfather was very influential in that. And actually, I remember when I went back, when I bought my first rental property, and I guess that was probably maybe 2013, I guess is probably when I bought that first one. And I had to sit in front of Papa and explain to him my numbers that really, in hindsight, weren't that dialed in. And I think he knew it, but he also believed in entrepreneurial spirit. And I guess thought, he believed that I could pull it off. And he kind of said, all right, go for it. It's a good enough idea. Go for it. And I got this apartment, had no idea how to be a landlord. So I figured that out. Went on to renovating them. And it's actually just been in the last couple of years that I've really been leaning in to goal setting and expanding myself to meet the rigors of entrepreneurship. And it's actually really kind of one of those things where I guess I really kind of adopted kind of my own who I am really when I realized, and I read a lot of books, and I believe this one was Be Your Future Self Now by Benjamin Hardy is a really good one. This huge goal setting for me puts everything in perspective of what I'm doing now. So when I was working at the fire department doing side hustles, I never really got that side hustle to take off. Then I went into residential real estate. Then I went into commercial, which is a product I love. And I'm really glad I niched down. And I niched down further into capital raising. I looked around and I had the best operators, way better than me. I thought, well, I'll just raise money for them. What a great partnership waiting to happen, right? So when I started setting these huge goals, um, it really put it in perspective of how my present is, I guess, and say, yeah, if you give yourself credit for your body of work leading up to this point, and then you have these goals that are going to take so much focus in the present to do it, it dials me in. And when I'm building a business and I'm learning, especially learning new aspects, I got to learn marketing, I got to learn just all this stuff that as as a landlord I didn't really have to do. So growing into that person, Jim Rohn says, don't set a goal for the sake of achieving it. Set it for the person you have to become to achieve it. And so when I set those big goals, I realized, man, being an entrepreneur is in my purpose now. Um, and it's in my purpose because I had so many great years at the fire department. They built a very immature 25-year-old into someone that holds themselves accountable. Honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is a super beneficial skill to hone. And also just being curious has gotten me pretty far through life. So growing up in a family of entrepreneurs and also growing up curious, I think, always leaning into the next thing to learn has served me really well. But yeah, that's kind of where the seed was planted, the family, and just watching everything around it. It all seemed very normal. So when time came to strike out on my own, it seemed like a very natural progression, I guess.
So who's been that hero, that inspiration for you in your life?
So my grandfather, for sure, is a prime example of someone to look up to. My heroes, if I had to pick one out of the business world, I don't know that I can. There's a lot of people I like their content, but my grandfather was a doting husband, a perfect gentleman, um, very modest, and he was successful, and he was still very modest, and just stayed kind of a small Kansas kid his entire life. But his dedication to his family and the way he treated people, and especially my dear grandmother, we were buddies. So, but yeah, just the way he navigated life quietly, um, and just really encouraging, I think. To have someone you admire believe in you is rocket fuel, I think.
So, if you can meet anybody alive, whether it's in the realm of business or otherwise, out in the world that you find fascinating alive today, who would you love to spend some time with and see how they operate?
You know what? A hundred, I would say Keanu Reeves is up there. He's a deep thinker, you know, a very just quiet philanthropist, really. I understand he gives a lot of his money um to charities and crews that he works with, and just his story's pretty fascinating. If you guys haven't heard it, it's worth kind of looking up. He's seems like a neat guy. Definitely not the guy from Bill and Ted that you might think. He's more like Neo.
Yeah, yeah, I dig it. So, what is your motivation every day to wake up and to do the good work that you do to help clients, to evolve as a human being? What is that gas in your tank?
Honestly, when if I'm dragging, I think about what financial freedom really is. To me, financial freedom is not a bank account. It's freedom of time. And what I value is those experiences, um, to just go be somewhere new and just look around and take it in is just something special to be able to be, just sit still and be in the moment. So when I think about that, that is something I not only want for myself, but my investors too. And it's encouraging that it is so accessible. The age of the internet has brought a lot of this opportunities for these great investments outside of institutions and in to the hands of people like me and other great and operators um, that may have not been able to get the traction they needed without that exposure. So yeah, with the accessibility of commercial real estate right now, an investment I believe in, my motivation is to get people involved and establish passive income and achieve financial freedom. Um, and then my other motivation is simply basically it's fear-based. I am afraid that when I grow up, I'm 42 now, so I'm pretty grown up, but I'm afraid when things are wrapping up that I'm going to regret something. I want to live life with no regrets. And I do not want investors out there to miss an opportunity and regret not leaning into it earlier. So it's important for me to bring information to people. And I do enjoy writing. So I do like writing content. So it's kind of a natural fit. But yeah, my motivation is that financial freedom for people that trust me to be a good steward of their money. Um, and just get out there and push and leave it on the field and don't regret. And so I think those are probably two of my biggest motivations.
So of everything that you've done and evolved into at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Probably my personal accountability. That is something that I really, when I was promoted to lieutenant, I was a lieutenant for a number of years, but as a leader, being accountable got me really far. Being able to reframe your failures as lessons is the way I like to word it. So I can go back and I look at these debacles that I had, not even really business a lot of times, but personal life debacles. And if when I go back and I hold myself accountable for my own actions, I find things that I can improve on and learn from. So, a very challenging time. I was laid up for a little over a year, really sick. And, it's just kind of, when I look back, I just finished reading The Gap and the Gain. To give yourself credit for your body of work leading up to that is encouraging. And then being able to hold myself accountable for my part in not only debacles, any situation where something is not right. If I can just look objectively at my own actions and say, hey, Eric, you maybe should have been more prepared for launching your construction company. Maybe you need better boundaries with the people in your life, things like that. So I can take that, hold myself accountable for my mistakes and then improve them. And without being able to do that, I don't know that I would be able really to push myself into becoming a better person, a better version of myself.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I love what I am trying to build myself into is an entrepreneur with grit and grace. I can't remember who said that, but it is it hit me as a very powerful statement. So I want to be someone that can not only hold themselves accountable, but how do I want people to view me? That's a hard one. Loyal. I'm loyal, and I like that about myself.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, I want people to view me as a loyal person. My jokes aren't always funny, but hey, I'll stand by you, right?
I love it. So if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about you, any of the good business, where can they go?
Yeah, just go to flowerscapital.com. There's a free ebook at the top, and hopefully you enjoy my writing.
Excellent. I love it, Eric. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep doing the wonderful work.
Hey, Joe, thank you very much. It was fun. Yeah, I'm glad you had me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.